Mother Nature is undefeated, especially in a place called the Badlands. But today, I'm gonna teach you how to make a deal with her so that you can have a successful day at the Maah Daah Hey 100 and hopefully get across that finish line. What's up, everybody? My name is JP, and I want to welcome you back to the classroom for part 2 of Maah Daah Hey 101, How to Survive the Maah Daah Hey 100. If you haven't watched the first episode, it's linked below in the description as well as right up here, and it's a good idea, but not necessary prerequisite for part 2. Backcountry mountain bike races are incredibly challenging, because the courses are usually insanely hard, but more so because of their names, backcountry. These races take place in remote locations, and the courses isolate the competitors from their help. And so when you do have the chance to see your help or your support, or what I will refer to the rest of the day as your S.A.G crew, you'd better be in capable hands. And then you have the support and gear drivers for each and every rider. Now, these are the people that are in charge of getting the riders through the race and getting them what they need at the checkpoints.
It all has to come together. The logistics of a point-to-point is such an adventure, and you have just as much of an adventure for the S.A.G crew that's meeting the rider at the checkpoints as you do the rider trying to get to the checkpoints. Having everything come together is all very important for a successful race.
Especially with the Maah Daah Hey, S.A.G is important because you're out there in the middle of nowhere, and if you don't have somebody waiting for you, a lot of times there's aid stations, but when you get to the point where you have been racing for a long time, you know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and at an aid station sometimes they don't have what works for you and what you really want, and so someone needs to be there with what you want.
I mean, I would never have had any of the success in any of my bike racing without people that are there to help you and there to support you and are a part of the mission. I personally think no more so than in 24-hour racing, and specifically the Maah Daah Hey 100. That's a point-to-point race, and so you have to have somebody that knows their way around the Badlands. They need to know timing. They need to have a vehicle that can drive through the river. My cousin Ryan has been.
Navigating this race with your S.A.G crew is a challenge, and so for this episode, I asked 6 of my friends to talk about what you and your S.A.G crew need to do to have a successful day. Kelly Magelky is the 5-time winner, and he's the course record holder for the Maah Daah Hey 100, and his S.A.G partner Ryan Steinman has more than 15 years of experience with Kelly, from the Maah Daah Hey 100 to the World Championships. Tinker Juarez is the 3-time winner and former record holder as well. Tyler Huber has consistently been the top amateur finisher over the past decade, and his wife Melissa has proven invaluable as S.A.G support. And finally, race director Nick Ybarra really needs no other introduction. He is the one in charge of this magical race. And of course, you're going to get my 2 cents as we go along through the day as well. Many times you will have a good laugh on me, but hopefully you learn something as well. Your S.A.G driver is not your Uber driver, and they aren't a way to get around the required person listing on your entry form. They are 100% for this event your teammate, and you need to see them this way as an equal. And if possible, I would really recommend bringing someone who knows you well.
I mean, I could get choked up even talking about some of the stuff that goes through your head when you're out there and you're being challenged by these things. I mean, it's just a bike race, you know, it's just a bike race. You know, when you're zoomed out from the situation and you're looking at it, it's like, you know, you're just riding your bike across the Badlands. Like, why is this even a thing that you're, you know, getting so involved, like so emotionally involved in or so choked up with? But it becomes that. You know, we're putting ourselves, and we're fortunate to be able to put ourselves through these challenges, through this incredible challenge of riding 107 miles through the North Dakota Badlands, you know, on a hot day, and challenging our bodies, challenging our minds, making this happen, and having somebody who kind of understands you, I think, on a personal level is incredibly invaluable.
We are definitely a team on race day, and when he does well and is happy, it makes me happy. You need all the people to help you. I don't ride a bike, but on race days, but I know if I wasn't there with the bottles and with the nutrition of sorts, like, he wouldn't be able to do it. And I enjoy that part, knowing that I can help him do something he loves and be a part of it with him.
For those that have done the Maah Daah Hey race, know that you need support. You can do it. It may be very challenging, and you may finish and you may not. Most likely there's a greater chance that you're not going to finish the trail, but also the overall experience of it, you need that support.
Having a SAG driver that knows you and knows how to handle those situations, I think, is invaluable. And if you have that and you can find that person, you're super fortunate. Thank them, take them out for dinner, you know.
Today I'll walk you through a checklist as we go, and if you want to go through the checklist yourself, there's a link to this exact same checklist in the description that you can download and use to help you and your SAG driver get ready for race day as you build the plan and the backup plan and the plan. If you have your own system, that's totally fine too, but if this is your first time, having a template of some kind to get started can be really helpful.
Your crew should just be really, really familiar with the map and have plan A, plan B, plan C.
The most daunting part of the day as a SAG driver is 100% going to be crossing the Little Missouri River. This decision can bring heavy weight to how the rest of your day unfolds, so we're actually going to talk about this first and allow our decision making with this topic to help us plan the remainder of the day. The river crossing happens shortly after checkpoint C and shortly before you get to aid station 2. I will say that crossing the river is 100% an individual choice that you have to be comfortable with. This isn't quite an Oregon Trail situation, but it may feel like it, and if it does, that's okay. There are other options for getting across the river.
Yeah, with the river crossing, I've done it about a dozen times, and every time it's been a unique experience. And the key really is like you said, preparation, knowledge, you know, understanding what the water levels are that week, and really it could fluctuate day to day, week to week, month to month.
You should 100% be keeping an eye on the water levels of the Little Missouri River in the weeks and days leading up to the race, as this can also help make a decision before the race even starts if you're unsure of what to do. I have left that link below as well in the description of where you can check the Little Missouri River water levels. You do have a choice to cross the river or to go around. And thinking this through should be part of your planning. It should actually be the first question your SAG team answers if you're going to avoid the river. If you're going to avoid the river, there is a south route recommended by the race organization and a north route that works equally well that I'll tell you about. The southern bypass directions from the race director are as follows. If you cannot cross the river in your SAG vehicle, take Highway 85 south to I-94 west. Drive west for 22 miles and take exit 1. At the end of the off-ramp, turn right onto Highway 16. Drive north for 29.2 miles. Turn right onto Blacktail Road. Then drive east for 11.7 miles. Turn left onto Morgan Draw Road and drive northeast for 3.5 miles. Turn right onto Forest Road 708 and drive south for 1 mile. Now, if I race this again and I have to have my SAG team miss the river, I would have them see me at check A. I would utilize the drop bag option at aid 1, and then I would be ready to use check C on my own before meeting my SAG at aid 2. And I would send my aid around the north route that my own SAG team used in 2019, which comes through Homesteaders Gap and Trotters on Highway 16 before turning east on the same blacktail route used by the southern route.
Never once have I ever been scared. Every time it's been different, but it's been fun because I don't know about you, but I don't drive through rivers every day. So it's like my one year fix where I drive through a river and it's like kind of cool. It's kind of surreal as well too. It's always great when there's somebody ahead of you, right? So then you can see their line. And I always, every time we approach the river, you always get out and you kind of look to see what is the water doing. You see little traits, you know, what is there, little ripples or little tides? That kind of tells you a lot of things. And if there's a vehicle ahead of you, you can kind of watch them, watch their line as well too, see if there's any drop-offs. Because that's the one thing you don't know, right? In the water is those drop-offs. And so you see that line and then you follow that line. And it's very simple. It's constant driving, nice. You don't want to like fly into it, but you want to build kind of that speed. And Nick did a really good job posting a cool video talking about that. And that's I wish that was a video 10 years ago. Would have been really cool. It was like threw me in the river and teach yourself to swim kind of thing. But that is a great video for anybody who's never done it before. He explains it very well, but it's a cool experience.
To help your stress levels or have clarity in your decision making about what it's like to drive your vehicle across the river, I have linked below the video Ryan referenced from race director Nick Ybarra, where he does an amazing job of explaining this process and strategy of driving your vehicle across the river. But as fun as Ryan may make crossing the river sound, for others the idea of crossing the river is a total non-starter. And the good news is there are those other ways that you can get to aid station 2. In 2019, the water levels were really high, like ridiculously high, and my SAG driver and I made the decision to drive around and meet me at aid 2. This decision meant that I was completely on my own from the start to aid 1. But I also had a drop bag at aid 1 and everything else I could carry. It was a calculated decision, but it mostly seemed like the right decision when later that day cars were unable to get through the crossing after a car high-centered in the high water and got stuck. Many competitors were suddenly and unexpectedly left without their SAG support as their cars had to backtrack, drive around Medora, and then drive out to aid 3. And for some people like Tyler Huber, who freestyled his support through that next set of checkpoints, it worked out fantastic. But for others who weren't quite as adaptable, it was a catastrophic mess and an immediate end to their day. While my day had a lot of other disastrous elements, having my SAG the second half of the race was truly a lifesaver. You have to do though what's right for you, and just because it works for me doesn't mean it's what you should do or what is best for your SAG crew. Ideally, the river crossing will work for everyone, but the river crossing will decide the planning of everything else you're going to do. So that's why the first question on the planner talks about the river crossing. You have to address this first, and from there you can make the rest of your plan and your backup plan and so on and so forth.
From a race standpoint, it's training for the race and being prepared with food and hydration is equal. It's all on the same footing to me as your crew being prepared to meet you at certain places with the right just the necessities.
Once you've decided what your river crossing plan is, then it's time to make the nutrition plan, and this comes down to 3 basic ideas. What is your nutrition plan? What is the backup plan? And finally, what is the O plan? What are the things you are going to get your calories and your hydration from? We talked in the last episode that it's good to plan on roughly 2 bottles per hour. 1 bottle of water and the other being a mix of some kind. I also recommend at least 60 grams of carbs per hour. And when I say at least, that number can get a lot higher if you can tolerate it. Some people will take that entirely in the form of liquid, like I do, and others will supplement gels or other food to get those carbs. Many racers will roll with a bottle of mix and then wear a hydration pack with water in it. Hydration packs are totally your friend in this race, and I can't recommend one enough. You can wear it all the time, or like some do, rotate the pack and bottles as you go, like Tyler did this year and has done other years. Now, if you are planning for a race this long and you are trying to find what nutrition works well for you, spring and early summer are the times to be experimenting. If you do this by mid-July, you'll be dialed for an August race. Within the actual race, I would recommend ignoring the pros in one very specific area. If you've watched the Maah Daah Hey film, you will see Kelly and Tinker roll through the aid stations and grab things on the go. And many people will see this and think they need to do the same thing, and they will make the mistake of trying to go through aid stations as fast as possible. But I would recommend you stop at every single aid station and checkpoint. Stop and drink some extra water before doing anything else. Because in an attempt to be in a hurry, most athletes actually get behind on their hydration and nutrition early on, and they will doom themselves later in the day by their behavior early in the day. At the checkpoints and aid stations, slow down and ask yourself if you are eating and drinking enough. And make sure that you actually are, or I guarantee you the course will eat you later in the day. Even looking through the footage of Tyler's stops from the 2023 race, he always stopped and he immediately drank just to top things off. The trail can also be very difficult for riders to eat or drink on during the actual race, and this is why I recommend the hydration pack. It's way easier for most riders to drink from, but Kelly has an even better strategy.
You usually can't eat enough or drink enough on the Maah Daah Hey. If you're going out there to race it and to finish it and to get a good time, it's absolutely worth stopping. If you feel like you haven't eaten enough, it's worth actually stopping at one of the gates. I've done this. You go through the gate, you're already off your bike maybe, or you've almost stopped. It's like, hey, pop some food, take a breather. That's going to pay dividends. If you don't do that, you could bleed minutes, hours, it's kind of amazing just staying on top of it.
I would also recommend planning to see your S.A.G driver at every checkpoint and aid station if possible, because it will help you stay proactive with your fueling early in the day. If you can't see your S.A.G at every checkpoint and aid, then as I said before, I would really recommend utilizing the drop bag system during check-in. Dial in that nutrition plan, and then dial in the backup plan, and then make that catastrophic nutrition plan as well. And know how you are going to use the checkpoints and aid stations on course if you have a major surprise out there. In 2019, I crashed on this descent around mile 14 as the sun was in my eyes and I hit a big hole and I went straight over the bars and every bottle except one ejected, and so did all my nutrition from my pockets, and I watched in horror as it all tumbled far out of reach down the side of the butte. I could bail on the day or I could move to another plan. I knew I was about 10 miles out from Aid 1, and I also knew I wouldn't get my S.A.G until after I crossed the river. So I was entirely down to the checkpoints and aid stations to get me through. It wasn't ideal, but I knew the checkpoints and the aid stations would have water and Coca-Cola, Tailwind hydration mix. I knew the checkpoints and aids would have bananas, potato chips, and pickles. And between a lot of Coke and water, I made it to check C, where a 75 miler was dropping out, and he handed me all the nutrition he had with him, which got me across the river where I finally met my S.A.G. The other nutrition question that I would say is really important to think about at the Maah Daah Hey is this: how will you make sure you are taking in enough sodium per hour to keep up with the heat if it's hot, which it almost always is? The reason the potato chips and the pickles are in the aid stations are to firefight when people have depleted their salt too much. But there are so many products these days that can help you stay proactive from the start of the race and make sure that your salt levels are good and that you don't end up in that firefight where all you want is a pickle. There are products like Flow Formula's high sodium mix, use John Peter 15 at checkout, but whatever company you're using or whatever product you're using, it is likely that they have some sort of high sodium mix. It doesn't mean you need to have it in every bottle, but it's definitely helpful. And you can watch the video that's here or linked in the description about why high sodium is so important when we are working out. The third section of trail that passes near Teddy Roosevelt's Elkhorn Ranch, well, it is as legendary as it sounds. And if you aren't careful, it will take your soul as you ride past.
The thing about this year and having it be an out and back and then an additional loop is that you miss the third section of trail, which has broken me so many times.
It gets really hot at that point in the day typically, and there's just relentless climbing.
And it just feels like never-ending climbs. Like you get to the top of a butte and you just want to see the next aid station, and all you see is endless badlands.
That's my favorite part of the course as well. I kind of, that's where I excel. That's where I kind of feel like I can level up a little bit against competition.
That's where the race starts. Halfway through, 50 miles in.
Every other year that I've came out here, it's been triple digits and it's suffering. And the race isn't won in the first 50. The race is usually won in like the last 40 when it becomes a battle of attrition and kind of who can keep swinging the longest.
That has been a section that Kelly and I have spent many hours talking about and fine-tuning and tweaking and improving on.
It's the longest section of the race in between the aid stations, aid station 2, aid station 3. It's the most rugged, and it's in the hottest part of the day usually.
It's when the heat turns on, and I think that melts a lot of people. I think that really softens a lot of people up, and you kind of see some true colors come on after that. And I also think that the climbs get kind of relentless, and you get the combination of those two things, and you just can't fake it after that. And I think if anyone's bluffing, that's where the bluff's going to be called.
Once you cross the river, I think you have to have in the back of your mind the next 27 miles to aid station 3, 27 give or take, is going to be very difficult. I would try to have your crew meet you anywhere they can in between that section, and also just have in the back of your mind it's going to be longer.
A lot of people head out really hard, and then they get to aid station 2, which is 50 miles in, and you've got 57 miles left. And if you're tired at aid station 2, you're in trouble, because that's when the heat of the day really starts to kick in. And it's like that next 30-mile stretch before you get to aid station 3 at Wanigan Campground is some of the most rugged, toughest section of trail, and that's where we lose a lot of racers, you know.
I think the first two sections, I'll get to the aid station, I'll get to aid station 1 pretty quickly. Aid station 2, and you're like, I'm on a good rhythm. I'm hitting these, aid stations consistently. But man, that third aid station, well, I'll be looking down at my computer being like, did I slow down by like 30%?
Yeah, that's what I really like about right after Elkhorn specifically is how you kind of get into that gritty, relentless kind of, I'll call it waterboarding section of the trail where it's kind of you can either take it or you can't.
I mean, what else am I gonna really say? Like, don't screw around. Make sure you nail the first half of the race with your pacing, your nutrition, and your cooling, because like Nick said, the race starts at aid station 2.
You go up on the buttes and you're exposed to the sun and that's baking down on you, and then you go into the valley where you think you're maybe going to get some reprieve from the heat and maybe things are going to turn around and maybe it's going to be a little cooler, and it's not. It's like an easy bake oven, and the heat just kind of it just marinates in there and it cooks you, and it's even hotter in the valleys, and that's what breaks a lot of people. I think that's what a lot of people maybe not necessarily don't respect, but maybe don't realize they're signing up for when they sign up to do the whole Maah Daah Hey 100.
I think people underestimate this ride. Like I said, it's a backcountry ride. So I think the mindset going into a ride like this is that, it's not a Leadville. It's not a kind of your normal 100-mile ride, 100-mile race. It's just, you got to be patient. It's like somebody told me a long time ago, they're like, it's like Mother Nature is really in control here. And if you kind of make a deal with Mother Nature, where you're going to stay on top of your own game, I think Mother Nature will reward you a little bit.
The 14,000 feet of climbing are difficult. The 103 miles of single track are mentally exhausting. Traversing the Badlands with your S.A.G will be a challenge, but those things, they won't kill you if you mess up. You may get lucky and it may be a cool year, but it usually isn't, and being prepared can literally be the difference between finishing or landing yourself in the Dickinson ER with a life-threatening situation on your hands. Mother Nature is undefeated. So like Kelly said, we are going to talk about how to make a deal with her.
Another thing, because of the heat, a lot of times at the Maah Daah Hey 100, one of the most significant changes that I've had is my crew keeping my core body temperature down. On really hot years, which we've had a lot of hot years. There'll be a lot of hot years ahead. Having ice water, ice cubes, putting them down your jersey, you could get to the third section of trail feeling really good at the hottest part of the day. That is absolutely important. Again, worth taking the time. I always tell people, take a breath. Take a breath, make sure you're set up. A lot of times we get stressed. Like, I can't slow down, I can't do this, I can't spend time doing this. And this is a backcountry ride, I'll stress that to people. We're not going somewhere like Leadville where if you pull off the side of the road, you've lost a pack. Like, that does not exist at the Maah Daah Hey 100 at all. Just calm down, take a breath, always ask yourself, am I eating enough? Am I drinking enough?
Between 2 and 3, that is the key right there, right? Like, it starts with the hydration, because as you know, there's no cover and the heat just beats down on you, and you get down in those valleys and it's like sucking on a hairdryer. And then on top of it, your water is even hot as well too. And so taking advantage of those access points, getting fresh water, whether your water bottle is empty or not, just getting a fresh ice-filled water bottle it's amazing. It's all about being prepared and understanding, like you said, the weather and hydration, because that is the key where I feel like a lot of riders start to fail, is that hydration side of it, the lack of hydration.
Besides pouring cold water on you, which scientifically speaking doesn't do much to dissipate heat, sorry Kelly, let's talk through some ways that you can cool your core body temperature. This is an ice sock. It is just a length of pantyhose or leggings that you can buy for cheap at the dollar store, and you cut a length, and this is not very full. If you look at this video, you can see the Mamy Jammer that Melissa takes and shoves down Tyler's jersey, but you just fill it up with ice and you stick it down the jersey and back, and as the rider rides, this will slowly, or not so slowly on a hot year, melt as they are riding. And it's a great use. You can make a whole bunch of these ahead of time and stick them in your cooler, or make them as the day goes and have them ready to go. The second way is to actually get cold water, really cold water, or even slushy into the rider and cool from the inside out. This is internal cooling, and this is why it is important to drink. And if you can hand them, when they roll into S.A.G, a really cold bottle of water that they hammer right away, that's really going to help dissipate the heat as well. These next two are going to sound kind of weird, but they are proven to really pull heat from the body quickly. And one of them is to just take a whole bunch of ice when the rider comes in and shove it down into their shorts. And the reason is the arteries in your legs coming through there, you can get that heat pulled from there quickly, or in other words, the ice can get into those areas and cool the person down very quickly. And it's not as awkward as it sounds. If they are really truly hot, they're going to welcome it because of how it will make them feel. The last way is palm cooling. This is actually the fastest way shown in a lot of medical studies to pull heat from the body. And that is where you would just have a cooler full of ice and the person shoves their hands into it, and that heat is going to come out of the hands quickly. And it is honestly something that I will try out the next time I'm on the Maah Daah Hey racing.
So there's a cooler for Kelly, and then there's a cooler for Ryan, right? Because that's also important too as a S.A.G person, because you're out there all day, right? So packing a cooler. So yes, we're all here for the rider, but you also got to remember yourself and staying hydrated and eating your whatever sandwich and chips and whatever sweets you like. So there's two coolers.
Make sure you and your S.A.G driver have a plan for how they, the S.A.G driver, are going to eat. And this is where that second cooler is important. And you actually need to care about them and what's going to happen with their food, because they need to be operational in that third section to help you keep going and be your best in that third section. Keeping everything cool can be a huge challenge, especially on a hot day. And when having cold things can be the difference between finishing or ending it up in that Dickinson emergency room, it's good to have some hacks to keep things cold.
Yeah, so, and this is something that I kind of discovered later on, because I pack a cooler full of ice to keep the water cold, and the ice was just melting, depending on what kind of vehicle I had. If I had a pickup truck without a tunnel cover, that sun just beats down on the cooler and that melts that ice real quick. So, or if I had an SUV that year, obviously the cooler would kind of stay inside, and that helped quite a bit as well too. But had used these, use like a milk jug or even the plastic apple juice gallon jugs, and you freeze them ahead of time. And then now you've kind of got your block ice, and then as the race is going on, obviously it's melting. Now you kind of have some really cold water that you can then in essence use as well too on top of it. But that has helped a lot as well too, is kind of taking advantage of getting a block ice and serving both purposes.
So let's talk about a few things when packing your cooler. And some of these are like bleedingly obvious, but I have to say them. And the first one is that you want to make sure the things that you're going to put in the cooler are already cold. Don't fill all your water bottles with room temperature water and then just put them in here and be surprised the next morning that your ice has melted. Again, this is laughable that I'm having to say it, but you'd be surprised how many times I'm at races and I see this happen. Okay, so your bottles have been in the fridge and they're ice cold, and you have your frozen jug of water, because Ryan said that's the best hack. And for the record, I would bring like 4 to 5 gallons of water, because in the backcountry, it's always good to have too much. As you're packing everything, I would also think about, if you're using a hydration pack, fill those bladders up with water the night before and freeze them. You won't be sorry, they'll melt on the rider fairly quickly once they're riding, but it'll provide you with more ice in here as you're going. Now, you don't always, if you have a SAG crew that knows what they're doing, you can teach them things like, hey, I need 3 scoops of this in every bottle at this place, and you'll write it down on that spreadsheet. And then you don't have to bring like every bottle that you own like I did in 2019. You can bring a few of them and swap them out as you go, and it's less to go in here and keep having to cool and recool. Now, one thing we did not talk about yet that we should talk about is you need to have those like fail safes, or those old standbys that you love. For me, even though I do flow almost exclusively, I don't eat anything, I just do flow. I do 90 grams of it an hour or more, usually the high sodium mix. My fail safes are this: I always have a few cans of Red Bull with, because I really like Red Bull when I'm racing, and I always have a few paydays because I also love paydays. Now, obviously, everybody's got their own preferences. You might like certain things. Kelly likes having a slice of pizza with. To each their own, right? But in that other category on the planning sheet, mark some of these types of things in there so that you have them. Because for me, man, a can of Red Bull hits just right late in a race when I'm tired. There are 100 ways to do this, seriously. But from talking with Ryan, as well as my own experiences, and from spending a ton of time with Tyler and Melissa, this is what I would recommend, or at least have this as the starting point.
A rider, nothing's more exciting for a rider than to roll up onto their SAG, right? Like, you've been riding for however many miles, haven't seen anybody, you are almost running on empty, and you all of a sudden you come over a hill and you see your SAG. And then likewise, the SAG is just as excited to see their rider as well too. Yeah. So, and sometimes that interaction can be as quick as 5 seconds, and sometimes it can be as long as, however, 5, 10, 15 minutes. When that rider rolls up, it's like an extra boost of energy. And that's key, especially on a race like the Maah Daah Hey, because it's a long day. And sometimes those are the only interactions you have with humans, is seeing your SAG person.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. And he got to see me suffer. He never seen me. I told him I haven't suffered that hard in a long time, and I literally suffered. And he was there that gave me the motivation to finish.
Oh, yeah.
So that gave me even extra suffering. So I really stuck it out. But it was, without him there, I don't know if I would have had the drive to have made it. But I knew that if I didn't make it, I would have never seen his face at the finish line until somewhere getting picked up on the ground, laying somewhere dead. But yeah, he gave me the spark to get done, and I was happy that he went and he seen me. There's good times and bad times, and he just seen me at a bad time, and now he knows that what it takes to sacrifice when you're really, hurting. So he got to see me sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was dope. It was good to see you push that hard.
Yeah, thanks.
I can't emphasize enough the need to have a good SAG partner. A lot of good SAG partners don't actually know anything about bike racing, but they know you, and That's the most important thing, because in those deep, dark moments we find in these ultra endurance events, in these backcountry events, they will be the ones who know how to move the needle emotionally and to help you.
I can tell that it makes him happy. I know it's important to him, and so it's kind of become important to me too. And biking is a huge part of our family life. At the beginning of a race for Tyler, I am more nervous than he is, 100%. It used to be because I wanted to make sure I did all the right things at the aid stations, got him the right things he needed. I don't worry so much about that anymore because we've done this so many times that we know each other. I know what he needs and what he wants. I just am nervous for him because I want him to do well.
I don't have to second guess it. I know I'm going to get exactly what I need to support me. 2019 again, I was doing the Maah Daah Hey 150, coming back from Burning Coal Vein up to Triple C, reverse of the way that the Maah Daah Hey 100 is typically ran, and it was an absolute brutal ride. They had been under torrential downpour for a few days. If you know the Maah Daah Hey, it's muddy, and it's not the kind of mud you can even ride through. And I got through mile 100, I came through the river, and I got to the other side, and I was throwing in the towel, and I said I had enough, and I was saying some probably words that I wouldn't repeat in front of my kids, and I was ready to pack it up and head home, and Melissa had a voice recording from Elena, my daughter, and she played it, and I'm almost like starting to get choked up just even thinking about it. But it was the right thing at the right time. It was just like, Tyler, like, you're not doing this for yourself. Like, you're not giving up. And yeah, it was just my daughter saying, hey, Dad, we're proud of you. I can't believe you're doing this. Go, Dad, go, kind of stuff or whatever. And like, right then and there, that's what I needed. Because if I wouldn't have had that, it would have been, I'm eating at, the Belfield gas station in 20 minutes because I was out of there.
Yeah.
But it was that right thing at that right time that, an Uber driver or whoever, just a generic S.A.G driver, wouldn't have been able to provide me. It was Melissa knowing that I needed that on top of my hydration, on top of, my Camelback, on top of whatever other tools that I needed to help get me through the ride. I needed that mental push, and finishing that race was the best decision I've ever made. I mean, I'm so happy she did that at that point for me. I wasn't exactly ecstatic at the time to get back on the trail, but in hindsight, it was awesome, and it made the story that much more awesome. And I talk about it with Elena and how special that was to me, frequently, and it made the day that much better. Having a S.A.G driver that knows you and knows how to handle those situations, I think, is invaluable. And if you have that and you can find that person, you're super fortunate. Thank them, take them out for dinner,
This race is the biggest athletic challenge I've done in my life. It took me to the edge and I nearly tapped out, but I was able to cross the finish line. And you can do it too. But like so many things in life, it's nearly impossible to do by yourself. You see, we weren't meant to do things alone. We were meant to live life with those around us, through their joys and the sorrows, through the highs and the lows. And what better place to go do that than an incredibly beautiful place like the Maah Daah Hey Trail and the North Dakota Badlands. It is a life-changing experience that is best experienced with a friend. And you can do it. You can get to that finish line too.
If Teddy Roosevelt said that it's the only place that he would want to remember if he had to forget all his other memories, there's something special about it, and it's worth taking a chance on North Dakota. And the best time to do it is when we have the trail mowed and we have the trail marked and we have volunteers out there at checkpoints and aid stations. It's the safest way to experience the 107 miles of that section of the Maah Daah Hey Trail. And I think that I think it's one of the best mountain biking experiences that a person can have. We do it because it changed me. And that experience, I'll never be the same. And I want to share that with as many people as possible.